Tonight, Major League Baseball is having their second annual corn game, which is a baseball game played in a cornfield in Iowa. And it is inspired by the 1989 movie Field of Dreams, which is widely beloved but hated by myself. I cannot stand the movie.
I think you secretly love the fact that you get to say you hate that every
year.
Not once a month, how much you hate that movie.
I can't stand that movie.
I think it says a lot about you.
Very much so.
I watched it again recently. It was on MLB Network as they're promoting Corn Game. And I
think they'd prefer you didn't use the phrase corn game and hashtag that, because I think people think you're talking about cornhole.
I apologize.
Oh, if they're playing the corn game.
They're playing the Field of Dreams game tonight, Reds versus Cubs. And I watched some of the movie recently on MLB Network and just hate watched it. You know, seethed through it. Thought this acting is awful. This whole storyline is awful. It's so mystical. In fact, I watched it come on. I like the first 2 minutes. Kevin Costner, I do. I like the first 2 minutes. Kevin Costner talks about how he grew up, and he and his dad grew apart. And the one thing they had in common was baseball, and they showed him as a young person and, you know, old movies and stuff. And then he's out in the field, and he said that all changed the day The Voice came. And then you hear, if you build it, he will come. And that's the moment I realized this movie's going to be awful. Because that voice in the field, you can't do that. That's not real. Whole thing's not real.
Not real. Your favorite movie is Jaws, Friday the 13th?
Oh, wait a minute. Now, all those things could happen. All those things could happen.
Yeah.
Shark attack. That was based on a true story. The shark attack. There's an attack in the early 1900s on the coast of New Jersey. Nonetheless, when I hear a voice in a cornfield in the sky, I turned to the guy I was there with and I said, this is going to be awful. This is going to be so hokey. And he loved it. You know, we've argued about it ever since.
Oh, yeah, people do. And I totally agree with Chris Demm that now you are the guy who, just because you don't like something that's popular, you get to tell everyone that.
It's almost like you get a little tiny chub every time.
Yeah.
I think you secretly hope that it comes up, and you're glad that it comes up so you can poop all over it.
It's perfect that now they've invented Corn Game because I get to say, and you're right, I've got a tiny, tiny chub, and I say, I don't like Field of Dreams. Everybody else loves it. I don't like it. I think it's
dumb.
It's awful. It's dumb. It's so fanciful. I mean, it's ridiculous. Nonetheless, I like this game. I like the fact that they play it in the cornfield. Last year, I went into it going, no, this is awful. But then I watched it. Last year, it was Yankees and White Sox. And when they came out of the corn, I was like, dang, I'm totally into it now. Because they came walking out of the corn.
This is awesome.
And then I was like, oh, man, I like it. So I started watching it, and I loved it. And it ended with a walk-off home run, and the White Sox beat the Yankees. Well, Biggie just gave me a factoid on this darn thing, that the cornfield, the baseball stadium, is owned by former White Sox player Frank the Big Hurt Thomas.
Oh.
That's a great factoid.
That is. And like you, has little issues below the belt.
That's right.
Yep.
Frank and I...
Little hardness issue.
Both have, but we both get a little chub.
Just a little chub.
When we talk about Field of Dreams for different reasons. Yeah. He sees dollar signs because he owns Corn Game in Cornfield. And I hate the movie. But we'll watch the game.
But enjoy telling people you don't.
That's right. And we'll watch the Reds and Cubs tonight.
I was a big Frank Thomas fan as a kid. Obviously,
he seems like a good guy to me.
I saw him in the Vegas airport once.
Did you?
As he and his family were in line. We were doing the walk past each other, and me and my buddy kept going, "Oh my God, it's Frank Thomas!" And you could tell that he noticed us. Like, oh, Frank. So finally, when we crossed by, I went, "Hey, Mr. Thomas."
Yeah. And did he respond?
He responded, said, "Hey, fellas," and gave us a nod. And we were like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God."
Frank Thomas.
Nice.
If I spoke with Frank the Big Hurt Thomas, of course, the two things we'd talk about would be Corn Game and then our difficulties achieving arousal.
That could be... You could say we have something in common.
Frank, you and I have a lot in common. I also have trouble getting...
Corn?
No. I don't like Field of Dreams. You don't like Field of Dreams? No. I
was thinking about erections.
I own the field right. Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about.
Wasn't the knock on the Big Hurt when he played? I don't know that he ever got swept up in the accusations of steroids, but he was an enormous man.
Huge.
Yeah.
The knock on him, I recall, at the time was he was so grossly misshapen and huge. Hats would not fit him.
That's right.
His baseball helmet.
That's right.
His batting helmet would not fit.
Correct. And they said
he couldn't fit his head into anything.
Years later, they said the same about Barry Bonds. You know, his head got so big. That's when that's like the tip off to steroids.
Yeah, that and back knee.
Yeah,
that's right. So I would talk to Frank, the Big Hurt Thomas, about corn game, back knee, and our trouble achieving arousal. I'd give him my product. He would give me his product. We'd compare notes, trade cards, and that would be that. I would love.
Tell Doug Flutie, Hank.
Yep, that's right. Doug has trouble. That's another thing I have in common with Doug Flutie. I would say to him if I ever met him. So I have a lot in common with him. We're Red Sox fans, and I'd say, Flutes, let's talk about arousal. You know, let's talk about our difficulty achieving arousal. That's what I would say.
Hey, Flutes.
So
I've seen the commercial that they do at the driving range. It's the Big Hurt and Flutie. Maybe one other, but I think it might just be those two guys.
Yes.
And then there's somebody else who can't get it up.
That's right. So they go up to
After
him.
hitting a bucket of balls.
Yes. And they have to go up to him and say, you have trouble with an erection.
Huh?
And the guy's like, what are you
I can tell by the way you're hitting that 8-iron. No, but at the end of the commercial, and it's so annoying that I usually generally mute it, but at the end of the commercial, schlub guy who couldn't get it up at the beginning of the commercial, now they give him whatever they give him.
Yep.
And he's got two women.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like on either side of him, there's a woman. Like,
that's right.
Hey, let's forget the golf.
That's exactly right.
Let's go back to the clubhouse.
Very good point. And it's a product that they say. Now I represent a competing product.
That's right. That's why I didn't bring it up. The name.
So the Big Hurt and I would be at odds over that and over corn game.
Yep.
The second part of Biggie's factoid is next year there'll be no cornfield game because the Big Hurt is going to be building youth stadiums out there, and because of construction, they won't have it. But I think hopefully the year after that they will have it because it's marvelous for baseball. I mean,
it's a big
great.
draw.
It's great for baseball.
Wasn't there? And don't they normally do a major league ball game during the Little League World Series too?
They do.
Yes.
Like there's a field, an MLB field that's not too far.
There is. I don't
From
know
Williamsport.
if that's going to happen. I haven't seen anything about that.
Me either.
I don't know if corn game just has
Replace
bigfooted
that.
everything.
I know that at least once or twice they've played at a Little League.
Yeah, because the big leaguers get to hang out with the little kids.
It's cool.
It's great visuals.
Yeah, it's a really cool. I'll tell you something else. You're just talking about steroids, something that has got me steamed. I just saw that last night Aaron Judge hit his 45th home run. And even though I hate the Yankees, I like Aaron Judge. I think he's a good guy. And everybody seems to think he's fantastic. And he's hit 45 home runs. Now, he's on pace for like 64, 65 home runs, which would break the record of Roger Maris' 62 home runs. But here's
Not the official record in baseball.
But it's not the official. I mean, I don't know what the record is. That's the problem.
I bet it's still 73, right?
I bet
Or
it is
whatever
too. Barry Bonds hit 70-something home runs. McGuire and Sosa both hit over 70 home runs. Barry Bonds has the record. I think it's 73. And see, those guys were all doing roids. So if they had not done steroids and broken that record, now this would be a huge story in baseball. It's not really being talked about that much. They say, oh, he's on pace for 65. He's never going to get to 73. But if those guys hadn't cheated, then he'd be in pursuit of breaking that record, and everybody would be talking about it. That's just this cheaters.
Well, I'll tell you, this goes back to Frank Thomas. You mentioned PEDs with him, and he always was really against players who he knew used them, and he would name names.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and that when he hit his 500th home run, he said, "This means a lot to me because I did it the right way."
Oh, he said that.
And he always felt that his career was somewhat stepped on by guys who did use PEDs, but he would name names like Jeff Bagwell.
Yeah,
I mean, he would call out players and say, "They did it."
Yeah.
They basically admitted they did it, and they're in the Hall of Fame.
Well, and somebody like Bagwell, so he went from hitting 25 home runs to 55 home runs. You know, some of those guys, Brady Anderson, I remember with the Orioles, had never hit more than 20-something home runs. All of a sudden, he's hitting 50, and everybody's like, what's going on here? That's when they sort of first started.
Thomas was one of the early ones who wanted players tested, too, even when he was playing.
Belying the fact that he has a very large head. Mm-hmm. Did you find him misshapen when you saw him in that airport that day? Huge.
Yeah, I mean, he stuck out among everyone because of how big he was.
Is it possible that you and Biggie and the Bigger Herd had the same thought when you saw one another?
Absolutely.
Do you think?
Whoa.
Right. Do you think he said on his podcast somewhere, I saw a guy at an airport that really stuck out?
You wouldn't believe it.
I mean, you talk about misshapen. Hat didn't fit him. Probably has ED.
I could barely talk to this guy. I could barely talk to him. I mean, he kept staring at me. I was staring at him, too. That's what the Big Hurt is probably telling whoever he was with that day. So anyway, I'm fighting for Aaron Judge, and I want him to have the same spotlight. Like, oh my God, he's breaking that record. I wish they would erase the McGuire, Sosa, and Bonds. I mean, we all know that's messed up.
It's weird because I soften at times to where I'm like, well, they did,
I know,
let him in. But then I do, like you said, the Judge stuff or
screwed it up.
Or the Frank Thomas stuff that makes me irritated again with it.
Look how enormous the story would be if that had never happened. If they had all hit like 56 home runs, legitimately. And now Aaron Judge on the biggest team in the biggest city, in probably the biggest name in baseball right now, one of them certainly, going for 62 home runs. That would be the talk of the summer. But instead, it's just a footnote now of will he get to 62 or not.